Hey guys, what is up? It is NT Forever, and it has been a while since we last saw each other, but today I am back with an updated dual boot tutorial for Ubuntu 16.04 and Windows 10. Now, first off, I want to say that if you've watched a previous video of mine, thank you, and the method that I use there will work. The method for dual booting with Ubuntu has not changed in a very long time, and that's a good thing because it's really easy. Really straightforward. A couple of things that are going to be different about this video is I'm going to try to be a little bit more thorough, kind of learn from my past mistakes, and just try to make this a thorough tutorial while, keeping it concise, keeping it quick, keeping you guys here. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right in. So first off, yes, I am using Windows 10 in this video. However, if you are on Windows 7 or Windows 8 or 8.1, there's no shame in that. That's fine. The method that I use is going to be virtually identical for those versions of Windows. So if you're on an older version of Windows, that's great. I myself am on Windows 7, so don't feel bad if you're on an older version of Windows. This will work just fine for you as well. So, getting right into things, the first thing you're going to need in order to dual boot is some disk space. And before we go and we make this disk space, we want to make sure that we have as much disk space to work with as possible. So the first thing you're going to do is go ahead, head over, and empty your recycle bin. Mine is already empty. You would just click this and click yes, and you would be off. The next thing you're going to do is open up a program called Disk Cleanup. It is right there. You can see. Just type Disk Cleanup into your Start menu, and you will find it, no doubt. And then when you're in Disk Cleanup, you might see this Cleanup System Files little button here. You're going to go ahead and click that, and that's just going to allow us to see all of the system files that we may not be able to see otherwise. So go ahead and let it assess things. Once again, just wait for this to finish. It takes a little while, but once it is done, you will see this menu. Let me see if I can make this window. No, you can't resize the window, so you have to bear with me here. But you can see we have all of this stuff, and you can just go ahead and get rid of everything in here, unless there's something you really want to keep. But chances are you are not going to need any of this. Real quick note, if you have upgraded to Windows 10 recently and you're not sure if you want to go back to Windows 7, do not delete this previous Windows installations option. Do not check this, do not delete this. But if you are sure that you want to stay on Windows 10, you can go ahead and delete that anyway. And you can see we can also empty the recycle bin from here, so that step is a little extra, but I'm used to doing it that way, so you can skip that if you like, or do it that way. It really doesn't matter. So we'll go ahead and get rid of all of this stuff. In my case, again, if there's something you want to keep, or if you have a previous Windows installation you are considering going back to, you might want to hold on to a couple of these, but if you don't, you can go ahead and click OK. Click Delete Files to confirm and allow this process to finish. It is rather lengthy, so I'm going to pause the video here, and when it is done, we will come back. So, for this next step, this is the one area where the tutorials are going to differ only slightly, and that is the defragmenting step. Now, if you are on Windows 8 or Windows 10, Windows will automatically be able to detect whether or not you are on something called an SSD. Now, I'm not going to go into what an SSD is, that's beyond the scope of this video, but basically what it is it's a hard drive alternative that you do not want to defragment. So if you're on an SSD, you don't want to defragment that SSD. And like I said, if you're on Windows 8 or Windows 10, Windows will automatically know whether your drive is an SSD or a hard drive. However, if you're on Windows 7, you're going to want to double check something first. So you're going to have to pardon the continuity error here. I'm going to exit out of my VM and show you guys this on my host computer. So you can see here, you would just go to your computer and you would have your hard drives. You would right click whatever hard drive you are going to be installing Ubuntu on. We'll say this one. Go down here to Properties, go to Hardware, and you'll see right here your hard drives. And you'll see that you'll notice this says SSD right here in the drive name, and this one also says SSD. So if it says SSD here, that means that it is an SSD and you don't want to defragment it. Don't worry so much about the way that the name looks. You can see these two look different because they're from different manufacturers. Just focus on whether or not it says SSD, and if it does, you're going to want to skip this defragmenting step, and if it does not, you're going to want to go ahead and defragment. Alright, so we'll jump back into our VM here. I apologize for that little continuity error. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Alright, so if you're on Windows 10 or Windows 8, again, you don't need to worry about that extra step of double checking. You can just go ahead, type defrag in your start menu, you'll see defragment or optimize drives. This will pop up. Mine is an SSD, so it'll just say optimize here. If you had a hard drive, it would say analyze and then optimize. You would do both of those steps. If you're on SSD, you don't really need to optimize it. You can skip this. It's not really necessary. This is really only if you are on a hard drive, because it does this optimization automatically, but if you really want to, you can go ahead and optimize that. Real quick, I'll show you what that's going to look like in Windows 7. Open up defrag the same exact way, and you can see here I analyze one of my SSDs, and it says 21% fragmented. We're not going to defrag that because it's an SSD, and that would be very bad. So, but if it was not an SSD, if it was indeed a hard drive, you would click Analyze and then Defragment. I'm obviously not going to do that because that would be, yeah, like I said, bad. So don't do that if it's an SSD, but if it is a hard drive, go ahead and defragment, regardless of your operating system. So we have defragmented, we have emptied our recycle bin, we have freed up as much disk space as we possibly can, and now we are going to move on to partitioning. Now before we partition, it is very important that I warn you guys, I have done this many times, and I've never had a problem with data loss or anything like that, but it's always good to be better safe than sorry, so you're going to want to back up any critical data to a USB stick or an external hard drive, or maybe if you're on Windows 10, OneDrive or something like that. Just have a backup of any critical data before you go and make your partition. Alright, so assuming you're all backed up, we're going to go ahead and make our partition. Now to do that, go ahead and type partition in your start menu, and this option will come up, create and format hard disk partitions. Go ahead, click on that, and this will take a little while to come up. It's a bit slow, especially if your hard disk is kind of big, and depending upon what operating system you have installed and what disks you have plugged into your computer, things will look a little bit different than this, but the concept, I promise, will be exactly the same. So the next thing you're going to want to do is identify which hard drive you want to install Ubuntu on, and you're going to go to the biggest partition on that hard drive. Obviously, if it's just one contiguous block of space, it would be that, but if you're on your Windows partition, just go ahead and right-click this C right here. Ignore these, don't touch these. These are very important for Windows, so leave those alone. So now what you're going to want to do is go ahead, right-click, and you're going to want to shrink volume. Now allow this this query to run right here, and you're going to land at this box. And what this is saying is how big do you want the space you want Ubuntu to be installed in, and it is in megabytes. So real quick, we're going to go and we're going to pull up a gigabytes to megabytes converter. And now, real quick, a caveat, Bing is inaccurate. You can, of course, use this is just an estimate, but if you want really accurate results, you're going to need to go in a different increment, which is 1024. Don't ask me exactly why that is, it's kind of complicated, but if you want the most accurate results, go ahead, head over to this website. I will leave a link in the description, and you can type in how big you want your Ubuntu partition to be. So for me, I want mine to be about 25 gigabytes. Yours, of course, will be much bigger. My hard disk is very small because I'm on a VM. We'll go ahead and click convert, and you can see here we're given this number in megabytes. Go ahead and copy that back over to this window, and go ahead and paste it in, and you can see, this is very important, this number that you just pasted in needs to be smaller than this number that Windows has generated. This is as small as Windows can possibly make this partition, and if you try to make it any smaller than that, it will get mad at you, and that's kind of what this is elaborating on right here, which is nice of it. When Windows 7 it doesn't do that, so that's cool. But so yeah, you just want to make sure that this number is smaller than this number, and when you have done that and you have double checked that this is indeed the size you want, go ahead and click shrink, and you're going to allow that to complete. For me, it was very quick. For you, it might be longer, but just be patient and allow that process to finish up. And you can see now we have this chunk of unallocated space here. Now leave this alone. You don't want to do anything with this. Just leave it there and just close out of this tool, and we'll work more with that later. Now, the next thing you are going to need is a way to boot Ubuntu. So the first thing you're going to need is your ISO. Now, you can download this from of course, the official repository. I'll have a link to this in the description. But before you do that, you're going to need to know whether you are using a 64-bit or 32-bit operating system. So to do that, if you're on Windows 7, you can open up your start menu, right-click Computer, and click Properties. If you are on Windows 10, you're going to need to press Windows key X, and it'll bring up this kind of power user menu. Somewhere you'll see System right there, and go ahead and click that. And this is going to open up your system properties. So you can see down here you'll have this 64-bit operating system, x64 based processor. Yours might say 32-bit 32-bit operating system and x86 based processor. Now you're going to want to keep this number in mind. If these are different, just go ahead and do the one that your processor specifies. Ignore the one that Windows is specifying and do your processor. If they're different, they should be the same. So keep this number in mind, and when you go to the Ubuntu download page, you're going to scroll down and you're going to see these .iso files. Make sure you're downloading the .iso and not the .torrent or the zsync or the list or the manifest or the metalink or anything like that. Don't download those. Just download the ISO file. And if that number was 64, go ahead and download the AMD 64 version. If that number was x86, come down here and download this i386 ISO. And if you want to install something different like Xubuntu, Lubuntu, Kubuntu, the same rules apply, just of course you would download it from that respective website instead of the Ubuntu website. And I will have direct links to both of these in the description as always. So I'm not going to download it myself, but if you would see down here and it would be downloading. We're not going to download it because that would take a while, and I already have the ISO. So once that's done downloading, or while that's downloading, you can go over to this website, again, link in the description, and you're going to download this tool called Universal USB Installer. Make sure you don't click any of these ads. It is this button right here. Make sure you are only clicking that and not one of the ads. So go ahead, click that, and you will see it downloading this, this application. And you can see we have our Ubuntu ISO now and Universal USB Installer. So let me go ahead and minimize this so you guys can see more clearly. So now you're going to go ahead and run Universal USB Installer, click yes, and click agree. And you'll see select a Linux distribution. Go ahead and select Ubuntu, and you'll go ahead and find your Ubuntu ISO. You can see it's right here in our downloads. Open that, and it'll say OK. And our flash drive, go ahead and select your flash drive. This flash drive needs to be about 4 gigabytes in size or larger. Mine is 14 gigabytes, just because it was the one that I happened to grab. So you'll need at least a 4 gigabyte flash drive. You can see, don't check this option unless you need to, and of course verify that the drive letter is indeed the one you want to put it on, but you should need to check that. And also make sure you check Format Drive E. If you don't format Drive E, your flash drive will not be bootable. And also, don't worry about this unless you know what this does, then you can worry about it. But if you don't, then just ignore it. So we'll go ahead and click Create. And it's asking us to close Explorer window so that we can format. Go ahead and do that if it asks you to. It's just because you must close all Explorer windows before formatting a drive. And you can click Yes and just wait for that to happen. You can see we're formatting Drive E. This process is very lengthy. It takes about 20 minutes or longer. So you're going to go ahead and just let this run uninterrupted, and you can see there now it's going, and this is the longest part. So I'm going to go ahead and let this run, and when it is finished, we will move on. If I can get out of my VM and access my taskbar. Thank you. And in the meantime, oh, hold on. Yes. And in the meantime, while that is running, I'm going to show you guys, in case you wanted to burn to a DVD, this is too big for a CD, so you will absolutely need a DVD. But in case you wanted to do that, all you need to do is right-click, burn disk image, and you'll see this menu come up. And it's pretty self-explanatory. You just select your DVD drive. I would definitely check Verify, just to make sure that everything is all right, and click Burn. I don't have a DVD in my DVD drive, so I'm not going to do that, but you would do that, and it would burn your ISO. Previously in the past, that's an oxymoron. In the past, I've recommended a program called ImageBurn. Unfortunately, the creators of that program have began bundling it with some spyware, which is really a shame, but I can't recommend that anymore. So if you watch an older tutorial and you happen to see me mentioning ImageBurn, when I was recommending it, of course, it was safe, but now it has become infected, which is a shame. So don't download that. Just use Windows' inbuilt tool, and that is available in all versions of Windows 7, 8, and 10. So, again, just going to let this finish, and I will return to you guys when it is done. Alright guys, I am back and our USB stick has finished burning. I forgot what that was called for a second. So we can go and click close here and we are ready to boot into Ubuntu. Alright, so now to boot into Ubuntu, you're going to need to access your boot menu. Now, ideally, you'll just put the disk in and it will boot to it. And you're welcome to try that first. However, if that doesn't work, you are going to need to do something a little bit different. And that's going to depend entirely on whether your computer is using a BIOS or using a UEFI BIOS. And those are big scary acronyms, so if you don't know what those mean, don't worry. I'm going to try to explain. If your computer came with Windows 8.1 or Windows 10, you're going to want to do what I'm going to outline now. If it came with Windows 7 or earlier, you are going to hang tight for a little bit, and I will explain what you should do. So for 8.1 and 10 users, what you're going to want to do is go to your system settings right here. Make sure you're using the new one and not the old control panel. You're going to go to Update and Security, here, Recovery, and you're going to see Advanced Startup. You want to click Restart Now, and you're going to allow that to happen. You can see here we have Use a Device, and you can click this, and it should show your USB stick in here, or your CD-ROM drive. You can see here I have VMware CD-ROMs. You should see your USB here, or your DVD drive if you're doing that, and you can just go ahead, click on that, and it will ideally boot into Ubuntu. So what you're going to do if your computer came with Windows 7 or older is you're going to reboot, and you will see on your computer's splash screen, you should see something like press F2 for boot menu, or delete for boot menu, or something like that, and you would want to press that key right when your computer starts up, and you would see the boot menu, and I will show you what that looks like right now. Alright, so after you've rebooted, if you have gotten into your boot menu successfully, you will see something like this. Yours might look different depending on what kind of BIOS you have, but it will look something like this, and you will of course select CD-ROM or your USB stick. However, if you do not have a boot menu or you're just unable to get to this, you can also go into your BIOS. There would be a separate key for that you would press. Once you went into your BIOS, you would go over to boot. Again, yours might look different. BIOSes are kind of, yeah, they look different, but you're going to want to look for something called boot or startup or something like that. And you can see here, mine's already in the right order. You would just, increment CD-ROM drive to the top. And again, if you do this step, if you set this in the BIOS, make sure you come back in and set your hard drive to the first option so you don't have a random CD plugged into your computer and it tries to boot from that. That wouldn't be good. So once you're satisfied with your changes in here, you'll see a key down in the bottom. Mine happens to be F10, so you can select that and it will boot into Ubuntu. Alright, so now that you have booted from your media successfully, first off, congratulations. I know it's not the easiest thing. But now you're going to go ahead and select your language of choice. I'm going to select English for the obvious reasons. Now here, of course, you're welcome to try Ubuntu if maybe you want to, give it a final go before you install it. But we're just going to assume that, we're already committed. We're installing Ubuntu. So we're going to go and select Install Ubuntu. And we'll go ahead and let this load up. It will take a little while, especially if you are on not CD. I keep saying CD. DVD. Especially if you're on a DVD, it's going to take a while. But if you're on a USB stick, it should be fairly quick. So we'll go ahead and let Ubuntu load up here. And excuse the small resolution. It's because I'm doing it in a virtual machine. So pardon that. So go ahead, when you see this installer, go ahead and click Continue. And you're going to want to check both of these, unless, of course, you don't want to do this. But if you're new to Linux, you definitely want to check both of these for sure. Go ahead and click Continue. And you'll see Install Ubuntu alongside Windows 10. Go ahead and click Install Now. And you'll see this option. You can go ahead and click Continue to this. This is something new they added. Before it didn't prompt for that. You don't need to worry about that, though. It's still going to install in that unallocated space that we made earlier. Yes, that is where it is going, the unallocated space. Some people get confused about that, so yeah, it's going in the unallocated space we made. So go ahead and select where you live. That is accurate for me. You can see you have your keyboard layout here. The window likes to go off the screen. I'm gonna say continue because I'm using an English keyboard. Go ahead and enter our username here. You will need to enter a password for Ubuntu. It's not like Windows where you cannot have one. You will need a password. So I'll go ahead and enter that. you can select whatever option appeals to you. I'll select login automatically, so it will be more Windows-like, and we won't have to type in our password all the time. And you're going to go ahead and allow this install to run through. Alright, so you can see that our installation has complete, and we have the option to restart now. Go ahead and click that. At this point, you're going to want to remove your USB stick or your DVD that you used to install Ubuntu, so it doesn't boot the USB stick or DVD again, because we don't want that. Alright, so when you reboot, you will be greeted with this menu, unless you didn't take your USB stick or DVD out, and you'll just need to do that and then reboot again. But you can see here we have this menu here. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and boot into Ubuntu. That'll be the top entry, and we'll allow this to load. And here you can see we are in Ubuntu. We're going to go ahead and reboot into Windows just so I can show you guys that that does indeed still work and we can still boot into Windows. Of course, you're welcome to stay in Ubuntu and mess around and do all sorts of fun things, but since this is a YouTube video and I need to keep things concise, we are going to just reboot. And you can see down here, you'll see Windows. It can be Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, loader on whatever. Go ahead, hit enter, and that will boot into Windows. Alright, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any comments, questions, anything like that, leave them down in the description, and someone from the community or myself will be glad to help you out with those. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you liked the video. I appreciate it tremendously. I have a huge amount of subscribers, which is crazy. I love you all. But yeah, I will see you guys later. NT4 out.